Oh, right. Is that back? Should be back with you in a second. Sorry about that. You back? Yeah, we're back. Sorry. I'm running all my USB buses at absolute maximum here, and it really is one in, one out, and pretty fragile. Yeah, you didn't miss much. You missed a nasty, bad quality sample. And I was just about to say that I have been playing around a lot with very dirty sources, dirty source tonight. This is by no means how everybody used to do their sampling. There are all sorts of ways to get a decent quality sample from one of these parallel port samplers that I'm using there, that plugs into the printer ports like this. There are ways to get good sounds with it, and they involve things like getting equipment, some of it ungrounded, so they don't share a ground loop, doing things to avoid the DC bias, other hum things, impedance matching. There's a whole load of stuff that is not much fun and really nobody should be doing in 2019. Either you use one of these because it's quick, dirty, and easy and nostalgic, and you don't care that you've got loads of noise in the system, which is what we have tonight. We don't care tonight because we're doing lo-fi hip-hop. It isn't all about noise, but hey, I've just decided to say that I don't care tonight. It's not how I would normally put together samples for a tune. I would normally do my prep on either on hardware synths that I then recorded on, or software synths on the Mac or a PC, but for me usually a Mac, and do all the conversion on that side of things. I would, where I've got a lot of control over the final sample rate that I end up with, at which point the dithering's been done. I want to be sure that when I bounce down to mono, firstly, I'm not going to get phase cancellation issues, which is what you get sometimes with a very wide patch that is bounced down to mono. Sometimes joint stereo will do that. Sometimes the mono you want from a patch is just the left or just the right channel, so it's nice to know what you're going to get. And I've written some software that does that. There's a version 2, which is better than the version that's on GitHub. But if you go look for Echo Level on GitHub, you'll see some software called Amiga Pal. Very weak pun on the region spec of Amigas in the UK, and the fact that this is a friendly helper application to help you either drag a directory or a bunch of WAVs into the app, and then you get waveform view of each of them, so you can look at a glance, you know, oh, that's a breakbeat, that's a pad, and then you can batch process an entire directory or an entire group of files. You can do stuff like, you can export them as 8SFV actually, which Protracker, some versions read. You can choose what kind of mono you have. You can choose whether to put a prefix or a suffix on there. You can choose the sample rate or the note that you want it to come out as. And I've prepared a lot of samples for mods that way. Now, it's not completely disingenuous compared to the processors in the early to mid 2000s. Sure, if we were getting samples into our mods for anything other than a chiptune, it would be used most of the time using one of these samplers. But some people had CD players built into their Amiga 12000s. Some people had access to discs of samples or CDs full of samples that they could chop up in apps other than Protracker and then bring into Protracker, which is the kind of thing we looked at briefly when I showed you mod to samp. We've got multi-sample, and SAM is another one that I don't use, but a lot of people use that for preparing samples. In fact, I think SAM will synthesize notes with standard conventional software synthesis, DSP. It'll just do it offline slowly, give you the note as a sample, then you stick it into Protracker and do what you want with it. I think that's what Sam does. If not Sam, there's another app that does that. Yeah, so but for tonight, here we are with the noisy samples. Different night we'll have less noisy samples. It's almost 11. I'm going to wrap it up soon. Here's as far as we've got. I'll save it. We might pick up on it again. I'll add some bass and see what else we've got. But I think it might be nice to come back to this and do it a little bit more cleanly, so that at least the sound that's meant to be noisy, like the vinyl noise, comes across as intended. I got a new sample there, didn't I? This one, yeah. Stick it in there, see what happens to it. Oh, I like that original one. Well, that needs work. And I've spent so long talking about other things and my audio dropping out. We didn't get as far through that as I'd have liked. But having said that, a lot of the things I keep leaping back to are kind of first steps, and there isn't really a structured way to look at Protracker. You kind of have to look at everything in parallel and then just tackle obstacles as you come across them. There's no point in me moaning for half an hour about how Discop never does exactly what I expect when I expect. Some of that you'll find out the hard way, but I'll try and remember what I can as and when. Right now it's easy to remember, oh, let's go into Discop. It's probably set to load and save modules rather than load and save samples. We've got a song name in here, so wherever we are in the directory path, wherever we are, save module, we'll save it. That's at least one thing you can be reasonably sure of. So yeah, I am going to wrap it up now. Oh, I'm going to check the chat and see if anybody's said anything that I've been cruelly ignoring. Is that Keneal? Hello, Keneal. Oh, sorry. Was somebody promised jazz? Yeah, sorry. Well, I mean, you know, electric piano. It's halfway there. Kind of, not. Anyway, thank you, Keto. I'm just going through some of these. Sorry, I'm not more efficient with the channel reading. I will get this sorted out eventually. Keto, yeah, it is worth noting that when you mix on Amiga using headphones, it's worth checking your output in mono, also to avoid those phase issues. Last stream I covered briefly, and I will cover again and again and again because I'm absolutely fundamentalist about it. I think you should always mix in mono, make sure your headphones are mono, hope that people will listen in mono. I think Amiga audio should almost always be mono unless there's an extremely good, exceptional reason for it. Just as a default, because it creates so much havoc with a lot of what people want to do. And yeah, so I am monitoring the Amiga in mono, so don't worry about that. But as you say, if you're monitoring in mono, it's a great way to avoid phase issues, and you would get those occasionally if you had. So you can run stereo. You can run a stereo sample out of the Amiga, but what you have to do is separate it into left and right as two separate samples, and then run them in parallel on two separate channels. And if somebody is listening in stereo, which they shouldn't be, but if they are, they will hear that as a glorious stereo sample. It won't be very long or very high quality, like it might be on Fast Tracker, but it can be done. And it's sometimes done to good effect in a lot of demo soundtracks and things like that. But generally speaking, most people way back were writing for crappy TVs with one speaker, or TVs whose stereo field was so narrow that it didn't really matter until you put headphones on that your sound was being thrown hard left and hard right. Yeah. But I will talk about that, and I will put up big warnings for boring rant and talk about that in a future session. Thank you all for coming. Twitch is this is Twitch. Twitter is where I'll announce when these are coming, and I'll try and do what I did today, which is sometime in the afternoon. A thought will strike me, and I'll think, we could do that. And I'll try and have regular scheduled ones. But if something occurs to me that I'd like to do, I'll try and shout about it in the afternoon, and then I'll try and put a message out at about 6 o'clock saying when in the evening I'll do it, usually 8 or 9. And then another message just before I go live to say what I'm doing. That is Twitter. I am Echo Level at twitter.com. ECHOLEVEL, Echo Level, all one word. And I'm trying to remember the notes I was given for a good Twitch practice by a friend and colleague who is more familiar with this than I am. I'm going to go back to his notes because he gave me some really good ones. He said, voice level needs to come up. Too many dynamics in delivery. Maybe compression if you are going to continue to deliver like late night jazz DJ does ASMR. And I am, as you can tell. I have no interest in stopping that. So yeah, hopefully the compressions help tonight. Thank you for giving me feedback, and especially for letting me know when the sound's crapped out. Thank you, Keto. Cheers. Put chiptune in the title because marketing. Yeah, I've done that. And we'll be jumping back to chiptunes every other stream, I'm sure. I mean, I did run a chiptune earlier. I'm sure a chiptune will happen in every stream. I hope I've explained things properly. I hope I've caught all the questions that came up, and I hope I've been diligent in reading out questions for people who are listening without looking at the screen, so that they know what's being asked before I answer it and stuff like that. This is a fun thing to get into. I wasn't sure how this would go, but Twitch seems pretty cool. Or this little corner of it anyway. When OBS works, it works nicely. Not for sound, it's terrible for sound, but it's great for easily, somebody who, like me, who's not very good at merging video streams or whatever, can throw this together quite easily with some cheap webcams. So that's all right. And also, you should tell people to follow Twitter at the start and end of each stream and publish your live times there. Well, just did that. And it's a really good time to wind it up and say good night. Thank you very much, and I will see you next time. Cheers.